Deputy Pringle, and then quickly.
Chairman, just in relation to when these vessels land in Holland or wherever and discharge their catch that they've got off the west coast, are they required, as I understand, they're required to inform ourselves in relation to what's been caught here and that it has the figures of the amount of fish that they've landed? Yeah, that they match up. Does that happen?
My understanding is that it does, to be honest, but like our department doesn't manage the enforcement. That is the job of the SFPA. But that's how the system is supposed to work. That actually there's an electronic logbook which records what's been caught, what weight, what species, and then when it's landed in the port, that matches up. That's how it works in
it doesn't happen in the case of Spanish hake. Caught in Irish waters, it doesn't happen in that case. So how do we know what happens? And surely as Minister, in terms of negotiating at Commission level and seeing how the whole CFP is operating, we should be aware of whether that actually happens.
If there are failures, it's up to the SFPA to get through to the Member State and actually get the information that they're entitled to. Obviously there are challenges when there are landings outside of the European Union, like the Faroes, like Norway and so on. And some of our boats land into the Faroes and into Norway too. So this is a common issue. I think we need to be careful that we're not pointing the finger here at other Member States and saying that somehow these people are abusing all the rules and so on. This applies to everybody fishing in the pelagic. Most pelagic boats in the northwestern waters are big boats catching very large volumes. What makes the freezer vessels different is that they process on board as well. So they're physically huge boats, and they're processing as they go, and that poses certain challenges because they can stay out an awful lot longer. And also when they're actually landing into port, I'm not sure how that's actually calculated from a weight point of view if they're processing at sea, but I presume there are some challenges there.
Okay. Just so we can be clear, just so that the reporting structures in terms of when they make their landings, it's up to the SFPA to follow up on that, and it's up to the SFPA to follow up with the Member State if they're not getting the information. So it's really
they do that, as far as I know, and they have a good relationship with the enforcement agencies in the other Member States, and the way this should work technically is that wherever you're fishing, wherever member state has a responsibility in that zone is there to enforce the rules. The electronic logbook should make available to everybody what boats are actually catching in terms of species and weights. And then when that catch is landed into a port, those figures should match up. That's how the system should work.
It's like the penalty points issued to the Danish vessel during the summer in the Irish Sea, when the Danish said no, we're not allocating them to the vessel, and that's the end of it. It has to be taken. The SFPA then have to take that up with the Commission. At what point does the department, as a policy maker, become involved in actually seeing that these policies are actually working?
Yeah, my understanding is that on that particular issue, the SFPA is following up with the Danish authorities and the Commission on it. I think there are a good reason why the Minister's office and the department isn't involved in the actual hands-on enforcement. This is an operational matter. It's a bit like in Garda Síochána. The Minister for Justice doesn't make operational decisions and shouldn't. There shouldn't be political influence on issues like this. This is a matter of whether somebody catches what they have a quota to catch or not. And if they're breaking the rules, the appropriate legal action should be taken. And introducing, political views or policy or opinions into that kind of a role, I think, would be wrong and would obviously, open up the system to undue influence and all the rest of it.
Well, it's not a question of views or policies. It's a question of whether the policy is working or not. At what point does the Member State become involved in talking to other Member States about how the poliwhat
Oh, sorry, that goes on all the time. The broader policy decisions. That's why we have a new common fisheries policy. What the policy does is try to ensure that the quota that are allocated to member states are what's caught, which is why we're dealing with discards as we are, which is why we have a new regional decision-making process, which is about policy and looking at better mechanisms for implementation. But once those policy decisions are taken, the actual implementation responsibilities are with the SFPA. But if it's not working, we have to change it.
I mean, that's the whole point.
And that's why the group that I was talking about earlier that meet across a number of member states are actually trying to improve that enforcement capacity. That's why they're talking about observers on vessels, and that's why we're talking about cameras now for the first time, which is certainly not being looked for by the industry, I can tell you.
Deputy Ferris.
Yeah.